Next, let's talk about deployment. So once you've performed adequate testing and you feel comfortable and the team feels comfortable that everything's been tested as thoroughly as possible, your code can be promoted to a production environment. We typically refer to this as going live. And your production environment is the environment that will be used for user interaction. Now, you can deploy through various methods. You can deploy through an app store if your software is a mobile application. If it's SaaS based, you can deploy through a website. You can, if the software is downloadable, you can put up a site where you click a button and download the file. There are other deployment capabilities that are out there, and just know that we're talking through each of these kind of in a silo, but it is very possible and even common that you can have multiple deployments. So for example, you could have a SaaS-based application where there are also apps for the phone and tablet and TV and other devices as well. So just keep in mind that it's not an either or type of situation. You can have a situation where it's multiple methods. Once your application is live, it would be great if possible to let users in batches versus a floodgate approach. So one of the most common reasons why if you watch the TV show Shark Tank or if you've heard of it, right, and somebody comes on the show with a product, their show airs and they end up not getting any sales, right? And you say, well, how is that possible? They just got all this free publicity. How could they not get any sales? And what happens more often than not is their websites are not built in such a way to allow millions of users into their website at the same time, or even hundreds of thousands or thousands. It might be something where, the typical load they get is 10 customers at a time, and that's what their web hosting is built for. And so what happens is, they go on a show like Shark Tank, and now everyone says, "Oh man, that's a genius product. I need to buy that." And now 1 million people go in right after they watch the episode or while they're watching the episode, and their site crashes. And now they end up with no sales when they had millions of people interested in buying the product. So you want to avoid the same thing happening with you, where once you say to everybody, "Hey, we're open for registration and purchase, go in and buy this product," you don't want people to try to get in, and now they get hit with an error that there are too many users in the system, or the site crashes, or it's just very slow. What happens in cases like that, when you say, "Hey, look, our site is down, please come back next week," it's very rare that somebody's going to come back next week. They're not going to remember, or if they do, they're going to say, "Well, everyone was told to come back next week, so who's to say you don't have the same product?" And over time, they're going to forget about you, and they're not going to come back. So if you have the ability, for example, if you started a wait list, and I highly recommend that you start marketing your application before the build is fully complete with it, or if you want to wait till everything is built and you do it when you start the testing phase, and just start collecting names of people on a wait list for your application. And if you can do that, once you're ready to start letting users into the system, you can say, "All right, well, I have a wait list of 1,000 people. Let me let 20 people in a day. I'll send an email to the first 20 people today saying, hey, the application's ready. Click here to get started." Maybe wait a couple of days in case, not everyone's going to, click on the link the instant you send out the email. Maybe it takes a day or two for other people to go in. So whether it's, letting them in 20 people a day or 20 people a week or 50 people a week, however you want to do it, it's always best to let people in small batches. That way you'll know, if your server can't handle 20 people logging into the application at the same time, it's not going to handle 1,000 people trying to log in at the same time. So you may want to make the upgrades that you need to your application so that it'll handle that versus sending out a mass email to 1,000 people, and 1,000 people get frustrated with you and don't want to come back to the application. It's much better to have 20 people frustrated with you and not wanting to come back than 1,000 people. So just keep that in mind. If that's not possible and you do have to just open the application and let whoever in, just make sure that your application is built in such a way that it'll automatically scale if that's needed. Now, you can mitigate some of the risk here with having a lot of people come in. When you're doing testing, there's a different type of testing that's called load testing that some developers or agencies do it. You may want to ask when you're going to hire somebody if they do it or have the capability. If you don't and you're already past all of that, you could always either just ask after the fact and just treat it as an extra expense, or you could post another project on Upwork or Freelancer or Fiverr, whatever site you want to use, and get somebody to do the load testing. What that means is there's special software that can simulate user behavior, and you can tell that software, I want you to simulate 1,000 users in the system at once. So it used to be very expensive to do this type of testing, and so not a lot of people would do it. And now there are a ton of open source applications that let you do load testing, and it's become a lot easier to find people who will do it at lower prices. So it may be an expense that is worth undertaking, where if you think you're going to have 500 people sign up in the first week, maybe you ask them to test this with 1,000 concurrent users. That way you get a sense of hey, can this thing scale if if I have more people sign up than what I originally thought. So just things to keep in mind, and if we come up with any other tips and tricks, we'll post a worksheet here for you with with some additional items. So just keep checking back to make sure that we're always updating this course.